Anime has given us some incredible fathers, heroes who would die for their children. But today, we're not talking about them. Today, we're diving into the darkest corners of anime to expose the manipulators, the abusers, and the monsters who didn't just fail at fatherhood, they redefined it. This is our countdown of the top 10 worst fathers in anime history. Let's begin. Kicking off our list is a character who might seem out of place to some. After all, Jing Freaksis from Hunter x Hunter isn't physically abusive. He's not a genocidal maniac. His sin is far more insidious and far more common than you might think. Complete and utter abandonment. Ging is a world-renowned hunter, a legend in his field, but in his pursuit of personal glory and adventure, he left his infant son, Gon, to be raised by his cousin. He didn't just leave. He made it a challenge for Gon to even find him, turning his parental responsibility into just another game. Some might argue that Jing's actions were meant to make Gon stronger, to push him to become a great hunter in his own right. And while that may be true, it doesn't absolve him of his fundamental failure as a father. Throughout the series, we see Gon's unwavering, almost fanatical devotion to finding the father he's never known. It's the driving force of his entire journey. And when they finally meet, after Gon has fought through life-threatening battles, endured immense pain, and nearly died, Ging's reaction is underwhelming, to say the least. He's more interested in his own pursuits, his own friends, and his own life. He shows a shocking lack of interest in Gon's well-being, even after the brutal events of the Chimera Ant arc. Jing Freaksis is the embodiment of the absentee father, a man so consumed by his own ambitions that his own son becomes little more than an afterthought. And for that, he earns his spot on this list. At number 9, we have a character whose actions are born from a place of desperation, but whose methods are nothing short of monstrous. Grisha Yeager from Attack on Titan is a complex and tragic figure. He's a man who has seen the very worst of humanity, a man driven by a righteous cause. But in his quest for freedom, he sacrifices the one thing he should have protected above all else, his children. With his first son, Zeke, Grisha repeated the cycle of indoctrination he himself experienced, grooming the boy to be a spy for the Eldian restorationists. He placed the weight of a revolution on the shoulders of a child, a burden that ultimately crushed Zeke and led to his betrayal. You would think that after such a catastrophic failure, Grisha would have learned his lesson, but you'd be wrong. After finding a new life within the walls of Paradise, Grisha has another son, Eren, and when the time comes, he doesn't hesitate to repeat his mistakes. He injects Eren with the Titan Serum, turning his own son into a man-eating monster and burdening him with the Attack Titan and the Founding Titan. He forces upon Eren a destiny of violence and death, a future filled with nothing but fighting. Grisha's love for his children may have been genuine, but it was a love that was twisted and warped by his own trauma and his unwavering commitment to his cause. He saw his sons not as individuals, but as tools to achieve his goals. And in doing so, he damned them both to a life of suffering. Grisha Yeager is a chilling reminder that even good intentions can lead to the most horrific of outcomes. Coming in at number 8 is a father who saw his own son as nothing more than a weapon. Rasa, the 4th Kazekage of the Hidden Sand Village in Naruto, is a man who made a choice that would forever scar his family and his village. In a desperate attempt to protect his village, he sealed the one-tailed beast, Shukaku, inside his newborn son, Gaara. But it wasn't the act of turning his son into a Jinchuriki that makes Rasa a terrible father. It was everything that came after. Instead of providing Gaara with the love and support he so desperately needed, Rasa isolated him, feared him, and ultimately tried to kill him. He saw Gaara not as his son, but as a failed experiment, a threat to be eliminated. He sent assassins after his own child, time and time again, including Gaara's own beloved uncle. This constant betrayal and rejection twisted Gaara into a lonely, hate-filled child who believed his own existence was a curse. Rasa's actions are a masterclass in how to create a monster. He took an innocent child and, through his own fear and paranoia, turned him into the very thing he was afraid of. It's only through his encounter with Naruto Uzumaki that Gaara is able to find a path to redemption and healing. But the scars of his father's cruelty will forever be a part of him. Rasa of the Sand is a stark example of a father whose fear and lack of compassion created a living nightmare for his own son. Our number 7 spot goes to a character who is perhaps one of the most controversial on this list, because unlike many others, he's on a path to redemption. But that path doesn't erase the years of abuse and torment he inflicted on his family. I'm talking, of course, about Inji Todoroki, the Flame Hero. Endeavor from My Hero Academia. Obsessed with surpassing the number 1 hero, All Might. Endeavor entered into a quirk marriage with a woman named Rei, not for love, but for the sole purpose of creating a child with the perfect combination of their powers. This obsession consumed him, turning his family into a breeding ground for his own ambition. His children were not born out of love, but out of a desire for a tool to achieve his goals. He was particularly brutal with his youngest son, Shoto, who possessed the half-cold, half-hot quirk he desired. He subjected Shoto to grueling and abusive training from a young age, isolating him from his siblings and causing his mother to have a mental breakdown. Endeavor's abuse wasn't just physical, it was emotional and psychological. He created a toxic and loveless environment, a home filled with fear and resentment. His actions led to the estrangement of his wife, the rebellion of his eldest son, Tuya, and the deep-seated trauma of his other children. While the current storyline of My Hero Academia is exploring Endeavor's attempts to atone for his past, it's a past that cannot be easily forgotten or forgiven. He may be trying to be a better man, but for years, he was a monster to his own family, a man who sacrificed their happiness for his own selfish desires. And for that, he is undoubtedly one of the worst fathers in anime history. At number 6, we have a father whose cruelty is matched only by his ambition. Charles Z. Britannia, the 98th Emperor of the Holy Britannian Empire in Code Geass, is a man who rules with an iron fist and a heart of stone. He is a staunch believer in social Darwinism, the idea that only the strong deserve to survive and thrive. And this brutal philosophy extends to his own children. With over 100 children, you might think Charles would have some paternal instincts. You'd be wrong. He sees his offspring as nothing more than pawns in his grand political chess game. He pits them against each other, encouraging a ruthless and bloody competition for his favor. He shows no love, no affection, no compassion for any of them. His own son, Lelouch, is banished to Japan after his mother is assassinated and his sister is crippled, an act of callous indifference that sets the entire plot of the series in motion. Charles's ultimate goal is the Ragnarok Connection, a plan to merge all of human consciousness into a single entity, eliminating individuality and free will. He is willing to sacrifice his own children and all of humanity to achieve this twisted vision of a perfect world. He is a man who has completely divorced himself from any semblance of human emotion, a cold and calculating tyrant who sees his own family as nothing more than a means to an end. Charles Z. Britannia is not just a bad father, he's a bad everything. A man who would burn the world to see his own twisted ideals come to fruition. Cracking our top 5 is a character who is less a father and more a force of nature, a walking embodiment of pure, unadulterated violence. Yujiro Hanma, the ogre from Baki the Grappler, is the strongest creature on Earth, and he wants to make sure his son, Baki, knows it. Yujiro's philosophy is simple. Strength is everything. He scoured the globe for the perfect woman to bear him a son, not out of love, but to create an heir who could one day challenge him. From the moment Baki was born, his life has been a brutal and relentless training regimen designed by his own father. But this isn't your typical shonen training arc. This is a life of constant abuse, of being pushed to the absolute brink of death, all for the sake of becoming strong enough to face the ogre. Yujiro is a remorseless monster. He's a murderer, a rapist, and a man who finds joy in the suffering of others. He killed Baki's mother in front of him, a horrific act that has haunted Baki for his entire life. He shows no love, no pride, no paternal affection for his son. Baki is not his child, he is his project, his ultimate sparring partner. Yujiro Hanma is a father who doesn't just neglect or manipulate his son. He actively tries to break him, to mold him into a reflection of his own monstrous image. He is a force of pure, destructive masculinity, a father who embodies the very worst of what a man can be. Prepare yourselves, because we're now entering the truly depraved section of our list. At number 4, we have a character whose scientific curiosity knows no bounds and no morality. Bondrewd, the Sovereign of Dawn, from the beautiful yet horrifying world of Maiden Abyss, is a man who has sacrificed his humanity for the sake of knowledge. Bondrewd is a white whistle, one of the most revered and experienced delvers of the Abyss. He is obsessed with uncovering the secrets of the chasm, particularly the curse of the 6th layer, which either kills or horribly mutates anyone who attempts to ascend. And to study this curse, he needs test subjects, lots of them. He lures children to his base of operations with promises of a better life, only to subject them to the most horrific and unimaginable experiments. He turns them into living cartridges, draining their life force to power his artifacts. He dissects them, mutates them, and discards them when they are no longer useful. But what truly cements Bondrewd's place on this list is what he did to his own adopted daughter, Prushka. He loved her in his own twisted way. He raised her, cared for her, and then, when the time was right, he carved her up, packed her into a cartridge, and used her to fuel his own transformation. He turned his own daughter into a tool, a resource to be consumed for the sake of his research. Bondrewd is a character who has completely lost his moral compass. A man who sees living beings, even his own child, as nothing more than data points in his grand experiment. He is a true monster, a chilling representation of science without a soul. At number 3, we have a character from a world that is already overflowing with darkness and despair. But even in the brutal world of Berserk, Gambino stands out as a particularly vile and loathsome figure. He is the adoptive father of the series' protagonist, Guts, and the man who taught him how to survive in a world that wants him dead. Gambino found Guts as a newborn beneath the hanging corpse of his mother. He took him in, not out of compassion, but because his lover insisted. From that day on, Guts' life was a living hell. Gambino was a mercenary, and he trained Guts to be one as well. But this wasn't a father teaching his son a trade. This was a master brutalizing his slave. Gambino subjected Guts to constant physical and emotional abuse, beating him, berating him, and showing him not an ounce of love or affection. But Gambino's cruelty didn't stop there. In one of the most infamous and horrifying scenes in all of anime and manga, he sold a young Guts to another mercenary for a night of abuse. This single act of betrayal is so monstrous, so unforgivable, that it has cemented Gambino's legacy as one of the most hated characters in fiction. He took a child who had already been born into a world of suffering and subjected him to the most unimaginable of horrors. Gambino is not just a bad father. He is a demon in human form, a man whose cruelty knows no bounds. He is the architect of Guts' pain, the man who forged him in a crucible of hate and despair. Our runner-up for the worst father in anime history is a man who is as iconic as he is monstrous. A man whose cold, calculating demeanor hides a broken and selfish heart. Gendo Ikari from Neon Genesis Evangelion is not just a bad father. He is the emotional black hole at the center of the series, a man who manipulates and emotionally tortures his own son for the sake of his own twisted goals. After the death of his wife Yui, Gendo abandoned his young son, Shinji, without a second thought. For years, he had no contact with him. Then, when Shinji is a teenager, Gendo summons him, not for a heartfelt reunion, but to force him to pilot an Evangelion, a giant biomechanical weapon. From that moment on, Gendo's relationship with Shinji is a masterclass in psychological abuse. He is cold, distant, and cruel. He uses guilt, shame, and emotional manipulation to control his son, to force him to fight in a war he doesn't understand. Gendo sees Shinji not as his son, but as a tool, a pawn in his grand plan to reunite with his dead wife through the Human Instrumentality Project. He objectifies everyone around him, from the emotionally fragile Rei Ayanami, a clone of his dead wife, to his own son. He is a man who is so consumed by his own grief and selfishness that he is willing to sacrifice the entire world and his own child's sanity to get what he wants. Gendo Ikari is a father who never grew up, a man-child who throws a world-ending tantrum because he can't cope with his own emotions. He is a chilling and unforgettable villain and a truly terrible father. And now, we've reached the top of our list, the #1 worst father in anime history. A character so vile, so monstrous, that his name has become synonymous with parental evil. A man whose actions are so unforgivable that they have haunted viewers for years. I am, of course, talking about Sho Tucker, the sewing life alchemist from Full Metal Alchemist. When we first meet Sho Tucker, he seems like a kind, if somewhat eccentric, father. He's a state alchemist who is struggling to make a breakthrough in his research. He has a sweet and loving daughter named Nina, and a loyal dog named Alexander. But beneath this veneer of domesticity lies a monster of unimaginable cruelty. 2 years prior, to obtain his state alchemist certification, Tucker created a chimera that could understand human speech. The secret to his success? He used his own wife as the primary ingredient. And when his license is threatened with revocation due to a lack of new research, he doesn't hesitate to do it again. He takes his own daughter, Nina, and her beloved dog, Alexander, and fuses them together into a grotesque and horrifying chimera. This single act is so profoundly evil, so utterly devoid of any humanity, that it has become one of the most infamous and shocking moments in anime history. Sho Tucker is a man who was willing to sacrifice his own family, his own flesh and blood, for the sake of his career. He saw his wife and daughter not as human beings, but as raw materials for his twisted experiments. There is no redemption for Sho Tucker. There is no understanding his actions. He is a monster, plain and simple. And he is, without a doubt, the worst father in the history of anime. And there you have it. 10 fathers who represent the very worst of humanity. From the neglectful to the abusive, the manipulative to the monstrous, these characters have shown us the dark side of fatherhood. They are a reminder that the title of father is not just a biological fact. It's a responsibility, a promise. A promise that these 10 men, in the most horrific of ways, failed to keep. What do you think of our list? Are there any other anime fathers who you think deserve a spot? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the world of anime. Until next time, stay safe and hug your dads as long as they're not on this list.